Five, I'm Marina.
I'm Solomon.
I'm Isha.
I'm Sagar.
I'm Remy.
I'm Kush.
And like the Thai children and women, we are priceless.
There are more slaves alive today than there were when Lincoln was alive. Selling sex is selling slavery, and slavery is wrong. Many times these sex workers are forced into the trade through threats of physical or emotional violence. They are taken from their homelands and relocated sometimes almost halfway across the globe. This is sex trafficking, and it happens more often than you think. One of the prime locations for this trafficking is in Thailand.
Thailand has a population of 67 million, of which 1 million are sex workers. Thailand is a source, transit, and destination country of human trafficking.
To address this problem, we're going to use a three-pronged approach. One, we're going to promote a paradigm shift. Two, we want to prevent sex trafficking itself. And three, we want to protect survivors. First, we want to promote a paradigm shift. Conventional thought has it that illegal prostitution is a crime of two parties. Both the sex worker and the buyer are at fault. But there is no such thing as a victimless crime. Many times the sex worker is forced into their profession. In Thailand especially, there's a growing demand for underage girls and boys. These people are incapable of giving consent. These people are exploited. They are the true victims. The real criminals are the buyers. And so to focus on that, we're going to implement policies that, one, decriminalize selling of sex, and instead focus on criminalizing the buying of sex.
So our second prong starts with prevention, and we believe that prevention starts from the foundation of promoting our paradigm shift, and we believe that we can do this through John School. And a John School is an educational or treatment program for men who are arrested soliciting illegal commercial sex. So basically what would happen when these arrests are made, the men would be required to go to a class at a John School where they would be educated on the situations that the women are in, the backgrounds that they're coming from, how they're treated when they're in these situations, and going to the extent of talking about the economic issues that human trafficking has on the populations and the communities that it's going on in. And we've seen implementation of these schools throughout the United States, and they've done a lot of great things. One of that would be, it starts by decreasing a demand for the purchase of sex. So through that, it then in turn reduces the amount of street prostitution and human trafficking in these cities. So we were going to implement 3 John Schools throughout the city of Bangkok. So to target the highest areas of sex tourism, trafficking, and prostitution.
In order to effectively eradicate sex trafficking, educating the following groups of people is key in order to advocate our cause. All of these initiatives are based off of already established programs in Thailand. So for police, healthcare, professionals, airport staff, and college students, we will be targeting them with the help of established NGOs to raise awareness about human trafficking and train them to recognize the signs and what to do once they recognize the signs of trafficking going on. We especially want to focus on airport staff and officials because they're the ones who are directly going to be encountering young victims of trafficking and can do something about it at that moment. We also really want to focus on families and victims themselves. We wish to work with them closely to educate them about the other options they have for income other than sending their daughters to work in a brothel. And also we'll be working hand in hand with the PATH program, which is a program for appropriate technology in health, and it's going to raise awareness about practicing safe sex and encouraging them to take advantage of the health clinic services available to them in Thailand.
Through this process, we also plan on preventing women and children from being tricked into sex trafficking by setting up microfinance systems in rural towns and in the sex trafficking hub of Bangkok. And so basically we are going to be targeting the vulnerable populations of women and children. We plan on teaching them how to cook, sew, do arts and crafts, and basically teaching them technology so they can set up a business of their own. Not only does this prevent sex trafficking, but this also gives an out for those who just got out of the industry. It gives them a job to do.
The third aspect of prevention that we want to focus on is the internet. 70% of child sex trafficking victims are sold online. This treats the people as commodities, not humans. However, organizations like Rescue Forensics and Traffic Jam have developed a search software that sifts through ads in order to find and archive evidence that will be used by law officials in order to prosecute traffickers and rescue the victims. Since it is free for law officials to use, we would devise a task force within the police to implement the software and begin to target Thailand online trafficking and cut down on the international trade. It would also flag ads that draw in sex tourism in order to help eliminate this issue.
The third approach we want to use is protection. We need to go directly to the source to find and rescue these women and children. And to do that, we need to use a multifaceted approach. We need to work with local, village, and city authorities, civilians, and NGOs. Once we find these people, we need to, one, either find ways to reunite them with their families, or two, find ways to help reintegrate them into society. If they decide that they want to go home, there are a couple of problems. One, a lot of times, pimps hold these people's passports and identification papers for ransom. And secondly, they may be detained for months in the deportation process, sometimes even years. To address that, we want to create international policies with neighboring countries to help locate the identification papers of these displaced individuals. Additionally, we want to work through government policies to develop initiatives that speed up the repatriation process. And finally, we want to establish multilateral trade and knowledge agreements throughout the Mekong district to expedite the transfer of knowledge across international borders. If these people decide instead that they would rather stay in Thailand, we think that it's important to design safe houses to provide safety and supply care to every rescued person that enters their doors. We want to provide medical treatment, ongoing psychological counseling, as well as material support for these people. We think it's important that we utilize housing that's already existing by tapping into initiatives like Thrive House or Rescue One, because we don't want to duplicate efforts. And finally, we think it's important that we provide educational and vocational training to these people.
We'll use public service announcements such as these to build support and further empathy for the victims of the sex trafficking industry. Furthermore, we want to further humane them and kind of decriminalize them in the eyes of the general population. We will use the public morale to force law enforcement to actually force or enforce the current laws. This is our 5-year plan. In phase 1, we will use the media to not only build support, public support for those who were trafficked, but also educate the general public. During phase 2, we will enforce the laws by using the public morale. During phase 3, we want to improve the lives of the victims. So we will improve their lives by providing a sense of leadership and direction, and also providing them medical assistance. And during phase 4, we want to establish homes. Everyone likes to feel loved. Everyone wants a sense of belonging in a home. So that's what we're going to provide that.
As you can see by this pie chart, the majority of our funding will go to awareness projects, to John schools, and to health.
You have 1 minute remaining.
As our biggest stakeholders are the 1 million girls and children in Thailand, we rest assured that our approach is sustainable. By improving the public image and legislation through the harbor laws, we are convinced that this is a sustainable system. We will also create treaties with neighboring countries, and all of our programs are self-sustaining since they're consistent with the Thai culture and are financially stable. Our multifaceted approach promotes shifting the paradigm, preventing sex trafficking, and protecting the basic rights and liberty of the sex-trafficked children and women, which will be monitored by evaluating the percent decrease in the sex trafficking industry. There is no price that can be placed on a human life. Just like our lives, every Thai life is priceless. Thank you.
You now have 5 minutes for questions and answers.
Could you go back to your budget?
Yes, ma'am. Do you want-
I'm wondering where you're going to pay the people who are going to do all, you have some wonderful things you want to implement, but where are their salaries and where's the office space that you're going to rent in your budget?
Next slide.
Next slide.
Yeah, so here's a layout, here's more detailed of where the money's actually going to go. And so we had $2 million to use over 5 years. And one of the unique things about our plan was that the Johns School actually, after the first year, which would be startup costs of about $100,000, but after that, we would use the fees that the criminals would have to pay in order to attend Johns School to create some sort of income that could further pay for more programs and the like.
We also wanted to reach like a volunteer base within the community to bring the Thai community in, so it wasn't just like a bunch of outsiders coming in and trying to take control. We really wanted to reach the community base. That was a huge like focus of ours when we were promoting the paradigm shift. So like definitely like reaching out to volunteers as well was a huge part of it.
We also tapped into a lot of already implemented programs, and so we didn't have to use a lot of those startup costs ourselves.
Can you have your 5-year plan? Okay, under phase 1, you got public reports of sex trafficking. Can you explain that?
Yes, so right now, sex trafficking is kind of, everyone kind of ignores it. They want to basically not to deal with it and kind of wash their hands away from it because it is the individual who is being trafficked their fault, or they're the ones involved. So by basically building this morale and showing the public that they are the victim in this case, they are not the criminal, we are hoping that the public actually gets behind this movement and starts to report anytime they see a individual, someone they suspect that there's some sex trafficking going on.
Talking about the 3 Ps, the promote, prevent, protect. Obviously, in the prevent, I've noticed that you talked about legislation for safe harbor and the development of Johns schools. My question to you is, are the laws in place now, do you feel, as far as enforcement, the criminalization of it, do we think they're adequate? Are they being enforced enough? And if not, how do we address the lack of enforcement or the corruption maybe within the government?
So one, in all the research we've done, we found that the government is completely inadequate to solving these problems. Many of the times in the research we found, the police themselves were behind, they were the head pimps in a lot of these underground organizations. So our overall focus was a community initiative. We wanted to focus on raising the morale of the population, raising awareness in the population, and getting them involved in the process. And once we get them involved in the process, we can use them to hold the government accountable.
Are there things built into your proposal for the victims themselves to self-identify? Are there motivations within there where they would, if the police aren't going to do it, that the victims themselves would have incentives to self-report?
We did think about that, but since we're focusing on Bangkok, which this industry is huge there, we don't want the pimps to basically catch on to those signals or catch on to basically those and kind of fabricate them just to see who the whistleblowers are, because they will be tortured even worse than they already are.
We thought that the most important thing at this point was that these victims felt safe and comfortable. And so putting them out there was a risk that we didn't think was that we had to take in the beginning steps. So that's something that we can implement later on when the program starts to get established.
The whole John Schools model, I was kind of curious about how you sort of take this multinational, because Bangkok's like this regional global center. So I'm just thinking about the diversity, arresting the people, which is an issue that they brought up, and B, okay, if you got Johns that speak 10 different languages, how do you provide how do you A, keep them there for a while, and B, provide them with an educational package like that?
So yeah, that was definitely a big challenge we thought about. And the one thing we thought that could bring it together was the internet. So definitely like making videos that could be translated through different languages. So kind of like an online school in a sense, so that it could be accessed wherever, like total full access wherever to whomever through many different languages. So that's the only way that like we thought it would be able to reach everyone was through the internet. So yeah, we wanted to like pull back on internet with rescue forensics. We thought that we could help with internet through that.
And can I have a question? Since you just mentioned rescue forensics, and so I use that in my line of work, and also traffic jam is not free to law enforcement. There's a charge for that. Spotlight is one that you didn't mention, and it is free for law enforcement. But in terms of using those types of programs, it seems like your focus is based on initiatives that that we're using here in the United States. And do you think that those initiatives that we use here in our culture is going to translate into the culture in Thailand?
Well, Thailand culture is very non-confrontational and kind of quiet, so that's one of the ones that would be a little harder to implement. But we think once we got it started and kind of got the task force that was motivated to make that sort of change, then they would be the ones that are really willing to put forth the effort to go out and do the research and the tracking to kind of help those victims.
So that's the end of the 5-minute question time. Thank you.